The name tag struck me like a physical blow. Family Maid in thick black marker, taped to the back of my chair at the Thanksgiving table. My fingertips went numb against the warm foil of the freshly baked pies I was carrying. The dining room seemed to tilt sideways as conversations dimmed and sharpened simultaneously. Every word suddenly too loud, yet distant. Isabel, my mother-in-law, looked directly at me, her pearls catching the light as she tilted her head. "Oh, Vanessa, we saved your usual seat," she called out, voice dripping with false sweetness. "Don't worry, you'll still be serving just like always." The room erupted in laughter. Kimberly covered her mouth with a napkin, snorting inelegantly. Patricia's eyes darted away, unable to meet mine as she offered a polite chuckle. And Zachary, my husband, briefly glanced up from his phone, the corner of his mouth twitching with amusement before he looked back down, saying nothing. I stood frozen, pies still in my trembling hands, as heat rushed to my face. Not from embarrassment, though that was there too. This was something else, something molten and electric surging through me. 10 years of swallowed words, forced smiles, and exhausting emotional labor crystallized into a single, clarifying moment. My name is Vanessa. I'm 38 and a former event coordinator. This is the story of how I served justice instead of dinner. The dining room was a masterpiece of holiday perfection. Crystal glasses catching the late afternoon sunlight, candles flickering between artfully arranged centerpieces. Everything looked beautiful because I had spent hours making it so. The turkey glistening in the center of the table. I'd been up since 5:30 a.m. preparing it. The cornbread stuffing, cranberry compote, and bourbon pecan pies, all made by my hands. I'd arrived at Isabel's house 3 hours early to help set up, while everyone else strolled in minutes before dinner. Now they sat there, waiting to be served by the family maid. My phone vibrated in my pocket, 3 short pulses. Without looking away from the name tag, I shifted the pies to one arm and retrieved my phone. The message was from William, my 24-year-old son from my first marriage. I'd had him young, barely more than a child myself at 14, which was partly why I'd always tried so hard to be perfect for everyone else. "We're coming in." The simple text sent a wave of calm through me. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and slowly made my way to the kitchen, placing the pies carefully on the counter. Through the kitchen window, I could see bare tree branches swaying against the gray November sky. For a moment, I leaned against the cool marble countertop and just breathed. 3 nights ago, I'd finally broken down and told William everything, not just about the family maid comments that had been building for years or how Isabel would critique my cooking while eating seconds. I told him about last Thanksgiving when there wasn't enough room at the table and I'd eaten alone at the kitchen counter while everyone else laughed and toasted in the dining room. "Mom, this isn't normal," William had said after a long silence. "You know that, right?" "I've gotten used to it," I'd replied. "That doesn't mean you should have to." William explained that he'd been interning at a small law firm specializing in emotional abuse cases. His mentor, Jasmine, had helped women establish legal boundaries when other options failed. Not lawsuits, but formal cease and desist notices. Documents that transformed invisible pain into concrete terms. I'd laughed at first. What would I even do? Sue them for being mean? William hadn't laughed. "No, but we can serve them a notice, a boundary, a warning." That word, boundary, had echoed in my mind for days, because that's what had been missing all these years. Not love, not effort, not even respect. Boundaries. My phone buzzed again. "Be there in 10. I straightened my spine, smoothed down my burgundy dress, and walked back to the dining room. The conversation hushed slightly as I entered. The family maid sign was still there, like a trophy of their cleverness. I approached my chair slowly, deliberately. Without a word, I reached for the sign. "Let me take that down," Isabel said, half rising from her seat, suddenly helpful now that the joke had landed. "No need," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I folded the sign in half and placed it gently on the sideboard. Then I sat down in the chair, not because I accepted the label, but because I was reclaiming the space. Isabel's smile faltered, just slightly. She wasn't used to me deviating from the script. Zachary glanced up from his phone. "You okay?" he asked quietly, a note of caution in his voice. I met his eyes directly. I'm fine. He nodded, clearly relieved I wasn't making a scene. He never did well with discomfort or confrontation, or me having a voice. The meal resumed, glasses clinked. Patricia asked about someone's beach house renovation. Kimberly complained about her daughter's college boyfriend. But I wasn't listening. I was counting minutes, feeling the weight of my phone in my pocket like a promise. The knock on the door was gentle, but in that moment, it might as well have been a thunderclap. For a second, no one moved. Isabel paused mid-sentence, gravy boat suspended in mid-air. Kimberly's laugh trailed off into uncertainty. Zachary looked toward the hallway, brows furrowed. The second knock came sharper. I'll get it, I said, standing up. You don't have to, Zachary began, but I was already walking away, each step down the hallway feeling like shedding a layer of myself. Years of swallowed words, forced smiles, and thankless labor falling away with every footfall. I opened the door to find William standing tall in a charcoal suit I'd never seen before, his jaw set in determination, though his eyes softened when he saw me. Behind him stood Jasmine, a slender woman in her 40s with a leather portfolio tucked under her arm and the kind of calm confidence that makes people instantly nervous. We'd carefully planned this moment last night, coordinating when they would arrive and what they would wear to convey the professional seriousness of our intentions. Hi, Mom, William said. Right on time, I whispered. I stepped aside to let them in. Isabel was already standing at the edge of the hallway, hands on her hips, her smile frozen in place. William, what a surprise, she said, voice artificially sweet. You didn't say you were bringing a guest. William gave a tight smile. This is Jasmine. She's here on behalf of my mother. The room went still. Zachary rose from his chair, face darkening. Good afternoon, Jasmine nodded politely. I'm here to deliver a formal notice regarding the misuse of personal labor, emotional distress, and the ongoing expectation of unpaid service. Excuse me. Isabel blinked rapidly. What the hell is this? Zachary demanded, moving toward us. I stepped forward. It's not a lawsuit, I said calmly, meeting Isabel's eyes. It's a formal boundary, a cease and desist outlining my role in this family, what I will and will not continue to do. No. You're kidding, right? Kimberly scoffed. No, Jasmine said smoothly, opening her portfolio and extracting a document which she handed to Isabel. This outlines her labor over the past decade. Cooking, cleaning, organizing holidays, managing logistics, all unpaid, all unacknowledged. It also states that she is no longer participating in family gatherings unless treated with basic dignity. Patricia finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Vanessa, why didn't you say anything? I turned to her. I did, just not with lawyers before. Zachary looked at me like I'd grown horns. You brought legal action into Thanksgiving? No, I said softly. You did, the moment you sat there and watched them humiliate me. Again. Isabel's face had gone pale, her perfectly manicured hand trembling slightly as she held the papers. It was a joke, she said, her voice unsteady. No, I replied, it was a pattern. For the first time in years, the room fell into genuine silence, not the fake, polite kind, but real silence, heavy, uneasy. I looked at the chair with the sign, now folded neatly on the sideboard, and felt something lift from my shoulders, a weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten it was there. William moved to stand beside me, hands in his pockets. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. You're tearing this family apart, Isabel said, still clutching the papers like they might burn her. I shook my head. Number, I'm saving myself from it. With that, I turned, walked past the table with its gleaming dishes and untouched food, and headed for the front door. Jasmine followed, professional and composed. William looked at me, eyebrows raised in question. You ready? He asked. I nodded once. I've been ready for years. The drive home was quiet, but it was the peaceful kind of silence, not the heavy kind I'd grown used to. William kept glancing over at me, trying to read my expression, checking if I was okay. I didn't say much. I was still processing. But I remember watching the trees blur past, their bare branches dancing in the wind, and thinking, I'm never going back there again. Not like that. At home, I made myself a cup of tea, kicked off my heels, and sat at my kitchen table, my own table. I let myself feel everything, not just the humiliation and anger, but also the relief, the strange lightness that came from finally saying, enough. The next morning, I woke up late. I didn't clean up after anyone. I didn't fold anyone's laundry. I didn't cook for a crowd that would never thank me. I made myself pancakes, just for me, and ate them in bed. It's strange how good guilt can be at disguising itself as loyalty. For over a decade, I thought I was keeping peace by staying quiet. I thought I was being strong by enduring it all. I thought being a good wife meant keeping Zachary's family happy at the cost of my own dignity. But peace built on silence isn't peace, it's self-erasure, and loyalty should be mutual, rooted in respect. Zachary texted that evening, "This was unnecessary." I stared at those 3 words for a long time, then deleted the message without replying. We haven't really spoken since. He moved into a hotel a few days later. I didn't ask where or why. I didn't need to. William checks in on me every few days. The weekend after Thanksgiving, he brought over dinner, lasagna with slightly burned edges. As we ate, he said, "It's your turn to be taken care of." I couldn't even answer. I just hugged him and tried not to cry. I've started volunteering at a local women's center, not because I have all the answers, but because I understand. I understand how easy it is to lose yourself, to become small, quiet, and agreeable, until you don't even recognize the woman in the mirror. But now I do. Now I look in the mirror and see someone who finally chose herself, not in anger, not in revenge, but in truth and strength. Thanksgiving looks different now. No crowded tables, no fake smiles, no labels, just peace, real peace. And sometimes, when I think back to that chair, the one they labeled Family Maid, I smile because they were right about one thing. I did serve. I served meals. I served love. I served patience and strength. But this year, I served boundaries. I served self-worth. And I served justice, cold, with a side of dignity. If you've ever felt overlooked, unappreciated, or erased in your own family or relationship, know this: you're not alone, and you deserve better. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is finally choose yourself. Stay grounded, stay brave, and never forget your worth.